Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the live stream today. My name is Mohit Srivastava. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce, and I welcome you all to this modern app development on Salesforce. Today's topic will be front-end application design using clicks and low-code. Now, before I begin, there's a forward-looking statement here. Please do not make any purchasing decisions based on anything forward-looking that we make today. All right, so today we'll be missing Julian. He's busy with some exciting work. So, it will all be me, walking through the front-end application design using, low-code tools that we have and clicks. So I'm all excited to get started. Thumbs up if you have any audio issues. If you want to get a video clarity, there's a button there at the HD. Just press on that and, select your resolution based on your bandwidth. All right, so just a bit of background on this modern app development series. So this series is designed to take you through various stages of application development on Salesforce, including design, build, test, and deploy. So for last three sessions, we've covered things like data model, not only on Salesforce but also on Heroku. And today, I'll be talking about front-end application design using clicks and low-code. Now, on next week, we have a session around lighting web components, and we'll also talk about SLDS, and also talk about how to prototype using sketch tools and things like that. So pretty exciting. And in December, we'll continue the conversation, and I'll get Julian on the call where we'll explore some more Heroku content, specifically like Apache Kafka, and also how we can integrate Salesforce and Heroku platforms together. We'll also look into application testing for both JavaScript and Apex, and also we'll be looking into application packaging both for node modules and also your Salesforce code base, using unlock packages and other stuff. Okay, so let's get started with the conversation today. And today, for a change, there will be not much slides actually. We'll be, essentially looking at the clicks and the low-code tools that we have at Salesforce for front-end application design. So today, we'll start exploring App Builder. Now, App Builder is our primary tool for creating pages. Like, let's say you want to create a home page or a record page or an app page. You can easily do that with App Builder. And we will see how it sort of relates to page layouts. We'll explore something like, dynamic forms that are very new to the platform. And then, how to use out-of-box components to compose your pages. Obviously, you can also use custom web components or custom lighting components. But you can always mix and match and create your layout. Sometimes you don't need that customization, and we'll talk about that. I'll also look into, I'll also take you through compact layouts for customizing headers, search layouts, for customizing fields on search page. We'll look into actions and buttons, dynamic actions. And then, at the end, if we have time, we'll also look into flows, because flow screens specifically, they are really awesome tool for designing multi-page apps. And again, it's a low-code tool, so you can click and point. You can also mix Lightning Web Components with it, which we'll explore in further sessions. But today, this is our agenda for today. So again, today I straight away want to move into activities section, because there's not a lot of content to actually share. It's more about how do we sort of understand what Salesforce provides out of box and how we can sort of use that to customize our pages. So with that, we move into our first activity for today, which is how do you personalize your org, based on your branding, using something called as themes and branding. So I have an org here, and essentially I have a project on my on my local. This is the e-cars project essentially. So if you go to Trailhead, apps GitHub repo, that's where you can look into all of our sample gallery apps. And today we are picking up on e-cars application again. Again, we choose this for this series because it has some really cool integrations with Heroku, and really some cool use cases of IoT and stuff like that. So I've cloned this app and sort of push to the scratch arc. Now I'm not going to cover how to do that because we did cover in the previous session. So recordings are up for first two sessions on Trailhead Live. So catch it up. You can go to trailhead.com and slash live and filter for developer sessions where you'll find them. I'll also see if I get an opportunity to put it on the chat here. Now, during the presentation, feel free to ask any questions. I'll be monitoring my chat window here, and if there is anything, I would definitely if there is anything that requires some answering, I'll definitely do that. So yeah, please feel free to actually post your questions and queries. Okay, so with that, let's move on to our first activity, right? So how do we personalize your arcs as per your branding, right? So Salesforce, right, makes it very easy. We call it as themes. Now themes are like your global branding essentially. So you can create your new theme. So essentially you say new theme, you put the theme name and the API name, and also you put your branding. Like for example, we have Salesforce branding here, but you can use your branding, your brand colors, and also how should the page background be, what should be the color of your global header, what should be the colors for the links that you see on Salesforce, right? So all of these are sort of configurable. Like for example, the images that you need, the default group banner that you need for your chatter profile pages, for your user profile pages, all of them can be configured in this new custom theme. So we actually have a theme sort of built already. So now I'm using a lightning blue theme, right? But for this e-cars application, we have a fictitious customer called Pulsar Bold. So we have designed a theme for Pulsar. So I'm going to activate that and show you how it actually changes everything. So as you can see, we have our own like header colors, the background colors, it's all purple. So let's take a peek at it. So as you can see, it has its own logo, the brand logo, the brand color, the page backgrounds. Actually, we picked, really purple and blue colors here. So yeah, so this is your first activity is, if you are having an org, right, where you have Salesforce, right, you would definitely want to, sort of make it feel like your personal brand, right? And that's where this whole theming concept comes into picture, where you can configure and create this. So for Pulsar, we have this. So essentially, if I actually go to the showroom application, right, you will see everywhere it's purple, and that's the branding that we have. All right, so now let's move on to our second activity here. So our second activity for today is creating a lead record page using App Builder for eCars. Now, I want to mention one thing in Salesforce, right? Everything is object context, right? So you create your data model, right? And all of your functionalities, like especially the UI that comes out of box, revolves around it, right? Now you can create home page, you can have a record page, you can have an app page, and I'll show you what is an app page. App page doesn't tie to that record context, right? But overall in Salesforce, right, a lot of things comes out of box once you design your data model. So that's why in last session I mentioned how important it is to design your object model well, because it not only affects your backend functionality, also there's a lot of things on the front end that comes out of box with it. So if you do it right, you're gonna get a lot of advantages out of it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and create a lead record page, and this is an opportunity for me to show you the app builder and how to use app builder to create pages. So let's take a look at it. So again, I'm in my org and we go to setup. Now, a lot of you might know this, but for those of you who are very new to Salesforce, I would like to, take some time and really go slow here. So we go to object manager, find lead. Let's find the lead object, right? So with that, you get a lot of things here. So one of them is lightning record pages. Now we already have a record page that comes out of box or with the application, the eCars application, but let's create our own to show you how you can do that. So you basically say new, it takes you to um, a landing page essentially. So you have the option to choose from app page, home page. Again, home page is what you see on the home. App page is, it could be a tab essentially. Record page is what happens when you actually go to the record, right? So there are three things that actually comes with an object, as I said. So one is list view. It's like what you see here, where you have the list view, right? That's called list view, where you can create your own list view. You can also adjust your fields. So that's the list view, right? Now, when you actually click on the record, you go to what we call it as detail view. So this is the detail view. This we call it as detail view. And when you actually edit the record, that we call it as edit view. So that's how, Salesforce sort of gives you out of box UI already for you to, sort of work with your object and the records. So in this scenario, right, we're going to create our own application page. Let's see if we have any questions so far. Feel free to ask questions, as applicable. I'll be monitoring the chat window here. See if we have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions at this point, so I think we are good. Okay, yeah, let's move on. So yeah, so app page, right? So we're gonna create a record page here. So we say record page. Now I'm gonna say lead new record page. Let's say new record page for Pulsar. Let's just name it. The next thing is to select the objects. Now we want to select the object as lead. So we select that, and next. So here, right, this is where it gets like really interesting, is you have options to actually select your page templates. And that's very important, because again, your requirements actually drive this. So depending on, who is accessing, what information they need, this thing you will have to sort of design. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to is we also have something called as pinned header. Now, this becomes really important where, let's say, you want a full width header, and let's say you want two sidebars, which are always like sort of fixed width, right? So that's where you actually pick it up, the pinned header. So we have pinned layouts like that. We also have like a 3-region layout, right? Now, sometimes you might want to build your own sort of template or a layout. None of these might fit your application need, and you might want to build your own sort of layout, right? So there's an application where we show that use case of how to actually build it up. Let me actually point you to that specific. So you go to this Easy Spaces application here. If you go to our styles, and if you go to our components, there are a couple of app pages where we show, like for example, this one, we create a 3 by 9. That means, we have your first section is like, 3-column width. Like imagine a 12 column on your layout, right? So imagine that your layout is spread into 12 columns, right? So we divide into 2 regions. One is 3, which has a width of 3, and the other one is 9. And then we show one example of 4 and 8. And you can actually browse through the code to see how we have built it. It actually uses Aura components, because this functionality still is not available in the Lightning Web Components, but you can use Aura components to actually create it, and we clearly show you some examples. You can even create a split view of like hiding and showing the views, and which I thought is like really pretty cool. So you should actually explore that if you're trying to sort of use one of the custom layouts, right? But for now, I'm happy with just going with, let's say, something like let's pick up something like a header and a right sidebar. Yeah, let's pick up something like header and right sidebar for this. So I say finish, and then I have ability to actually drag and drop the components on the page, right? And this is where it gets interesting, because what we have is, you will see that on left side we have all the standard components here, and on the and you also have custom components, right? So for this e-cars application, we have built some custom components, and as we proceed along the series, I'll also show you how to create these custom components as well. So let's actually, just use standard components for now. So I want to pull up a record detail because this is a detail layout and I want the detail view to have the record detail. Now, before that, there is one very cool out of box components called tabs, which really makes it really efficient. If you need like more than one sections on the same page with the limited space, right? So this is really cool. Now, for example, I wanted to say my default should be details. I want my details tab to go first, right? So now I want to, sort of pull the details, record detail view here. So I'm gonna pull the record detail here, right? On the related list, right? Let's say I want some related list. Again, related list happens, these are the views for your child object. So you create your parent object, right? And then, let's say you're creating child objects, which sort of links to those parent objects. So that is where, we need this related thing, right? So you get child objects. Those have their own sort of view and edit pages, right? But this is like a link to that, right? So again, as I said, your data model sort of dictates a lot of things, because if you relate the objects, you get this ability to sort of link those objects from the UI layer as well. So let's actually put a related section, so related list section here. I put the related list sections here. I have the detail here. Let's add one more tab for chatter. So I'm gonna go ahead and say pick up chatter. So now I have chatter, and let's actually pull the chatter view here. So let's call it as chatter will be the tab label. Wait, chatter. Okay, chatter is the tab label for that, right? So I have chatter where I want to put out of box chatter component that comes, right, which has the, hopefully this has the feed layouts and also ability to post your chatter feed. Okay, so we constructed this, right? Now on the header, I might want to bring something like a compact layout. So let's bring up a component called highlights panel, which essentially is a compact layout. Okay, so now I also want to bring up a component here, which is essentially, let's say I want to bring activities component, which sort of shows me, the tasks and the calls that are logged for this particular lead, right? So I've got all of these, right? So again, drag and drop, right? And I can optionally bring some more components. Like for example, one of the components that interests me is the path component, right? It comes out of box. You can basically, this is a out of box component where you can tie up any pick list values. Like let's say you have created a pick list in your object model, you can tie those pick list values to something called path, so that when the record sort of changes, you actually see a path here. Very useful standard out of the box component. So let's say I change the lead status, it will automatically sort of move around, right? So this is how you actually build up your layouts. Again, your requirement sort of drives these, of what you choose, like what layouts you choose, what components you choose, right? You can also choose a custom component. Like for example, let's say I have a web push notification component that I want to sort of drag and drop. I can, Also, one consideration is if you have a component which is growing or downwards and which doesn't have a boundary, it's usually recommended to actually put it at the bottom, so that the user can actually keep scrolling, sort of down or up, and they'll be able to sort of browse through the whole view. Okay. So there it is. This is how you actually build it up. Now, important thing here is when you actually activate it, there are certain things that we need to remember here. So you can make this page like an org default. So what does an org default means is, by default, this will be displayed, for all the applications, unless and until you actually go and override at the app level, right? So if there is so in Salesforce, right, you have many applications. Like for example, when I'm here, right, if you click on this and if you say view all, you see many apps, right? So you can configure your record page, your record page, yes. to be app specific or by default, right? So if an app doesn't have anything assigned, you will see that default layout, and that's what it means by assign as all default. Now you can go to the app level and assign at the app level. For example, I want this page for the showroom application, and I want it for both desktop and phone factors. Again, phone is a different conversation altogether. You might want to make sure that some of your components are supported on the phone. For example, if you have a table, right, you do not want to sort of make that component sort of visible on the phone, because it's a table and it can scroll on the right, on the left, right. If you have a tabulated data, you should actually think through the design a bit more before sort of enabling it. And you can conditionally sort of, for each of these components, you can conditionally set the visibility. I'll come to that in a bit, but for now, let's go ahead and sort of activate it for a specific profile, or sorry, specific app. And one more thing I want to show you is you can also, so in Salesforce, right, record types are very important. So record types are a way for you to have, like, on same objects, you get different record types which you can assign to different profiles. Profiles are like, you can group your set of users into profiles. So we have this profiles, right, where you can assign a record type. Like, for example, same record, and you have X number of fields that might not be relevant for another profile, right? So that, for that functionality, we have record types. And also you can use the record types in your automation. Like, let's say you want a process to run only for a specific record type, you can use this record type values to actually make sure that you add a decision element to your automation. So that's record type. And we give you that ability to say, okay, let's say we have the same object being used for different processes and different personas, that is different profiles, right? You have variations for them. Your requirements have different variations. Like, for example, if you have let's say an application for job seekers, right? Your fields for, let's say, a posting for mechanical engineering differs from the fields that you need for electrical engineers, right? So that's where this whole profile and record types comes into picture, because what you can do is you can create as many record types as you want, and then assign different profiles to them, and also assign different layouts to them. So that's why we have this capability. For now, I'm gonna just use the app default, right? And yeah, so we activate this app default. I think it's activated, I guess. We save it, and yeah, so that should be it. That should actually so this is the one that we have, right? So if I refresh my page, we should see the layout. We should see, okay, so this is the layout that we just assembled. Right now, there are some important things to actually consider. A lot of Salesforce developers might know, but for Heroku developers, this might be a new thing. So one thing we have is what we call it as a page layout. So what is a page layout? So what happens is, you see this detail component, right? We have these fields on the detail component. Now that is also configurable. So you go to edit page, and then you essentially click on the edit page, and then you go to lead layout. So lead layout is what is previewed today, and this is the layout where you actually arrange what fields that you need on the detail view, as well as when you actually edit the form, what fields you need. Now also note that these fields are also tied to permissions. So that means, for a profile, if you take the permission off, let's say I take the permission off for field level security for edit, what happens is you will see that profile doesn't have access to edit that field. So that's the functionality we provide. But yeah, so this is what a page layout is. You can actually arrange the fields here as you need. Like, for example, I need the title, I need the address here, right? So you change the layout, and that should automatically get reflected in the detail view here. Let's see if it gets reflected. Okay, yeah, this seems like it got reflected. The address moved the other side. Anyways, yeah, so that's how we actually build the layouts, and that's how the layouts are tied. Now I want to move on to the compact layout. So if you go to page layouts, right, there's also something called as compact layouts. So here, right, so compact layouts actually decide what your fields will be on the top header, that is this section, right? So you basically go to, like, for example, I've created my own compact layout where I say I want name, email, phone, mobile, and lead source. So what happens here is if the field doesn't have a value, it sort of doesn't appear. But that's what a compact layout is. It allows you to do a bunch of, and again, you can assign these compact layouts by by your essentially. So this is your primary compact layout, right? um, but you can really assign them per object and by by the profile. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, any questions, feel free to sort of ask me. Now that's compact layout. Now we also have something called as search layouts. Search layouts are very, very important, because what happens with the search layouts is, let's say you're searching something, right? Let's say you're searching for a lead, like for example, Martha Bix, right? So I want to search for that lead, right? So whatever the results that you see, now unfortunately I'm searching in the setup UI, but let's say I'm searching here, right? Usually it also, like, if you search, sometimes it does bring the results, right? So here, this fields, right, like when you search, what are the fields that should be visible on the on the search page? That's what you configure to the search layouts. So yes, so yeah, so those are search layouts, and you can configure them as well. So okay, so let's move on to, like, actions and buttons, right? So on this page you see these actions, right? So those actions actually come from page layouts. So by default they come from page layout. So if you actually go and click on them, right, you will see that there's a lead layout. So if you go to the lead layout, actually we will see that there are we'll see that there are buttons here. Specifically, if you actually, let's override it. So you see there are so many actions and the buttons, especially these buttons. Again, these buttons depend on a lot of things. Like some of them depend on what permissions that you have for them to actually appear. For this use case, I think we have simple buttons that are appearing based on, like, for example, I don't have the survey license, so I'm not seeing the get survey invitation. But essentially, yeah, this is where you configure. Now, interestingly, there's something called as dynamic actions that actually, so you can override these buttons that you see here with something called as dynamic actions. So dynamic actions, one of the capabilities of dynamic actions is you can actually set the action visibility. So for example, let's say I want to convert action, right? So I select that and I can add a filter based on saying, okay, if the annual revenue is this much or my city is this, then make this button appear actually. And you can configure based on device. You can also go into advanced, and you can use permissions, right? You can use the user permissions and stuff like that. So yeah, really powerful concept is dynamic actions. And the advantages that they have over over the buttons that you put on the page layout is the conditional visibility, and that's a very powerful feature. So actually, you should look into this feature, and really powerful. And this dynamic actions is available for all the objects. So note that dynamic forms, which I'm going to talk next, is available only for custom objects at this point, not for standard objects. But dynamic actions are a GA, and they are available for your standard objects as well. Okay, so with that, actually, let's move on to our next activity. Now, before that, I also want to actually show you how to, so as a developer, right? So these are most probably admin tasks, but initially you might, as a developer, you might set all these layouts, right? So one of the things you can actually do in, again, is, go to your Visual Studio where I have my project, right? And one of the features of scratch arcs that I've been showing you is ability for you to actually pull the pull the metadata behind it, right? So we did a bunch of configurations. We went and sort of changed layouts. We assigned layouts, right? So we can pull all the metadata configurations here easily with the command like for source pull. So you execute for source pull. Again, this is available in beta in developer edition arcs when you enable source tracking in your production arcs. On Scratch arcs, these are available, right? So where any configuration that you do, you don't have to remember, there is a source tracking mechanism built into the arc which automatically tracks it. So now you do for source pull. So with that, you will see that you will shortly see that it's gonna look for all those changes that we just did in the arg, and it's gonna pull the changes. So it's actually pulling all the changes here. Okay, so there you go. So we changed the lead layout. We created this record page, right? We created this. We modified actually the custom application, right? So you can see all the metadata that we changed, right? And the cool thing is if you have like source control, you can see what are the things that got changed in the arg, as a part of the configuration you did. So everything is sort of pulled as as an XML packet. That is what we call it as metadata in Salesforce. So this workflow of using scratch arcs actually make it very easier if you have source tracking sort of enabled, so that you don't have to remember all those changes, and you can pull that into your local. Okay, let's see if we have any questions before I sort of proceed in the chat. Let's see if we have any questions. All right, so I don't see any questions so far. So yeah, please feel free to ask any questions, or make comments. And I'm gonna monitor that and see how things are going. Okay, so yeah, so again, the reason why I wanted to spend some time on the front end application is a lot of you might know it. Again, for them, a lot of this is like a revision, but for those of you who are very new to Salesforce, it's important to understand what are the things that are available to you out of box in terms of what you can do just via the clicks. And that's why I wanted to take some time in this modern application development series and take you through some of them. Okay, so the next thing that I want to actually sort of walk you through is the next activity. So let's bring out our next activity. Okay, so our next activity is dynamic forms, right? So dynamic forms, again, dynamic forms available for custom objects. Now I want to take the actions out of here. So actions are available for standard objects as well, as we see. So let's take a custom object, like let's take a vehicle object, right? And see if we can sort of use this new um, uh, you know new dynamic forms. Now what are dynamic forms, right? Like you already saw that if I go to our record page, like for example vehicles is a good one, right? Probably this uses a custom component here, but let's say I had a standard component, like for example when we were on leads. So if you see this, right, so this thing was completely driven by what configuration we made on the page layout. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So this is completely driven by what we saw on the page layout. Now I might want to conditionally sort of render the fields, and that's where page layout sort of that's where the page layout sort of doesn't work, because what happens is the moment you start saying, okay, conditionally render this, conditionally render this specific fields, you start creating many page layouts and many profiles and things like that, and there's no clean solution. And that's where the dynamic forms, which is a latest addition to Salesforce, right, and available only for custom objects. In future safe harbor, it might be available for standard objects as well. So that's where it shines. So let's actually go ahead and sort of create a layout where we can use this dynamic actions. So I want to go to the object manager, and let's go to vehicle object. Let's go to lightning record pages. So let's edit this page, which is already there, and see what we can do with it. So this is, again, this came out of the box actually. Um, let's see if there is. Generally, if you're on a standard page layout, actually you have this option to upgrade. Like for example, you see this section, right? This section is using the record details, so we give you this option where we say, okay, you want to upgrade to the dynamic forms, go ahead and upgrade it, right? So for example, now I can say, okay, I want this thing, I want this thing to go and upgrade to the dynamic layout, and we give you automatic um, we basically give you an automatic menu to do that translation. So as you can see now, this is actually turned into the dynamic layouts. Now the advantage that you get again with the dynamic layouts is, again, the conditional visibility, right? So for example, for each of the fields, now I can add a filter, right? And not only that, so we give you a layout here, so you basically create your own sections. Like for example, the section that I have is a two column section, right? So let's say I wanted, a further sections, like further subsections, right, out of this. I can add those, like, there's an additional section here, right? So you can add additional fields here in different sections. So you can keep adding, different sections here, and keep arranging your layouts a bit more user friendly. And also, one of the biggest advantage, as I said, is the conditional visibility, right? So you can actually go ahead and add the conditional visibility to this. For example, for this one, we can also change this label to say vehicle details, something like this, or vehicle info. Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is default expanded section. The section label should also be changeable. You should be able to change that. Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, this is gonna say field section, and you cannot really change this, but I think what you can do is you can actually change this. For example, I can say lead information here, and then I have option to say if it's one column, if it is two column, right? That's the best part of it, is like, you have ability to actually do certain things. And again, the conditional visibility is always another advantage here. So yeah, so this is really cool way, right? Again, remember, these are not supported today in mobile view. It's only for the desktop view, and actually clearly says that the record details are not record detail, and not supported. Anyway, so yeah, so let's just save it and see the metadata behind it. Again, whenever you do configuration, right, you can actually poll to see what metadata went behind the scenes, right, or what metadata got changed behind the scenes. I'm gonna just do a for source poll. Yeah, it's gonna pop and say that, we changed certain things. You can also run sfdx for source status. It will tell you that this file got changed. So it looks like the change file was change file, the record page, right? So you see we did enable the actions configuration, is what is called behind the scenes for metadata, right? So it did change to um, the dynamic components. So yeah, so this is what I want to show you. Again, custom objects only at this point, but really powerful because it gives you that conditional visibility and allows you to, like, sort of go really granular and arrange your fields as per your requirements. Okay. All right. So before moving on, let's see if there are any questions or comments. Um, yeah, just feel free to let me know if there is anything that you need, anything that's not clear. And since we have some time, we can actually get into that, get into and show you some more stuff. Okay, seems like everything is clear, because I don't see any chats? Okay, cool. All right, so let's actually move on to our next, activity here. So let's move on to our slides. Okay, so our next activity, which is the last activity for this session, around how to sort of use tools, local tools, and configurations in Salesforce to actually get you the UI that you need, is flow screens. Now, flow screens, again, till now what you have seen is everything is like object context, and also what you have seen is it's all tied to the record page and objects and fields, right? That's where like flow screen shines, because they give you the widgets. And what we can do with flow screens is it's all object independent, so that makes it really powerful. So actually let's go back to our org, where we're gonna work through a flow. Okay. So if you have not sort of explored flows, flows are turning out to be a really good product. Especially one aspect of flows that I really like about is the screen flows. They are really powerful, and you can mix with Lightning Web Components as well, which makes it really more exciting. And if you go to Easy Spaces application, right, this application shows some of the use cases of using flows. In fact, the we use flows along with Lightning Web Components here. But for this demo, right, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna start creating a screen flow, which will be which can be used both for lead creation as well as, let's say, um, contact creation. So we're gonna make it object agnostic. That means it works with both objects here. um, and yeah, let's use some of the screen flow elements. So I have screen flow. So we go to screen flow. Right now, you can use freeform or auto layout. um, Auto layout is really cool because it automatically helps you organizing um, the layouts for you. So I'm gonna select that. Now in our toolbox, right, so you say new resource and you select the type of the resource. Now we need to make sure that we add a screen element here. So let's begin with screen element again. So you select screens, and then you get this screen components on the page, right? So for now I'm gonna, so this, let's call this flow as create lead or contact. Let's call that. Okay, and then okay, so let's call it lead or contact. Let's see. So okay, so create lead or contact, and then what I want is, maybe we want to put a pick list value. Let's put a pick list value here, which says, okay, so let's say, let's call it as, do you want to create lead? You want to create lead or contact, right? Okay, and the data type for this is text. Okay, so we want to enter the choice value. So let's create a couple of constants here. So one of them I want to call it as, let's call it as lead, and data type of this will be text, the value will be lead. So these are the just some constants that I'm creating for the picker. So next is, so we pick that up actually. Where was the, okay, let's add one more. Let's say new resource. Let's say source type is, okay, so the resource type will be pick list choice. No, let's not do pick list choice. It will be simple constant. Let's call it as contact, contacts Data type for that would be text. Let's say contact. Yeah, value screen components. Okay, done. All right, so okay, so I think I'm missing something here. Let's figure it out. Okay, a value is usually required, right? Okay, let's say a choice element. Let's say a choice element. That would be better. So we created the constants, right? So I'm gonna say lead, right? So I'm gonna say lead choice. That's the API name, or let's say select lead or contact, and the choice label will be lead. Okay, so this is select lead. Let's say select lead as the API name. Resource type is choice. Let's call it as select lead. The choice label will be lead. Data type is again text. The choice value is again lead. Okay, so that's our first one. And then let's add the second one, which will be select. Again, new resource. And then let's say choice, and let's select contact. Might be our API name. We might need a dash here. So label will be contacts. Let's select the text. Let's say the choice value as contacts. Okay. Yeah, so these are the two choices that will be available for us, right? So we call it as done. Okay, next screen element, we want to add some screen elements here. So we say screen elements, right? And this is where it gets interesting, is you have all these options, right? So now I want to say, okay, I want a column for name. Let's call it as, okay, so this is like first name and last name, right? Yeah, it's deleted. Let's just pick up a text field for now. Okay, so text field, let's call it as last name. Right, let's make it required. And then let's also add one more text field for company name. Let's call it as company name. Okay, and we can make that as required. Now, you can also set visibility rules, etc., and also add some validations if you want. Let's say you're validating for something like phone number or email. Also, let's pick up an address one, which is a complex screen element, right? So address one, again, it asks you to map these values to some variables, right? So I'm gonna say address. Much time do we have left? Okay, so we have 10 minutes left, so we're gonna go a little more fast to see if we can complete this. Okay, so city value, again, let's create a variable here so that we can store that. So we can say city, data type is text. This will be available for input and output as well. And then country options, right? Again, this is for pick list type, right? Let's just say country options. Let's just use the country value for now. So country value, let's put it in a field called country, and then say country, data type is text, again available for input output. Postal code value, again, let's just pick a variable and say postal code, data type is text. Done. What else we have? State. So we have 4 options. Let's say you have enabled state and country pick list, right? It becomes very easy to map that way. So they have given 2 options here. So but now for this one, let's just say, what else we have? State, right? So we say state. Let's create a variable. New resource variable state, data type text. Done. Okay, street value, I'm not gonna bother about it. Okay, so we have entered this, right? Now, so now we want to actually, we can add data. We can add, so you have two errors. What's the true error here? What's the two errors? Let's see the errors here. Okay, so I am missing the label and the API name. Okay, so this will be, let's call it as lead or contact input, contact form. Okay, done. Okay, so now I want to add that branching logic, right? And that's where the flow makes it really easy for you to actually do that, because you can add a decision element to it, right? So we say new resource. Okay, sorry, not new resource. We go with a conditional logic here. So let's actually go and add something here. So we add logic. So we say add a logic. Okay, so our logic here will be, let's add the logic. So this is the, where is the logic element? Okay, so we're gonna say, decide whether it is lead or contact, right? So decide whether it is lead or contact, and then I'm gonna, so we had this screen components, right? So we had this screen component where okay, so let's assign this selection choice. So where was, so these are the variables, this is the screen component that we created. Okay, let me see where we actually created. So did I assign this to okay, so this is the value that we picked up, and did I assign this to a variable? So these are the choices that came across, right? So we said, okay, so let's also add a default value here, and these are the choice elements that we picked up. Okay, so all that I'm trying to do here is select a, somebody selects a lead or a contact, they come to this form where they enter the last name and the company name, and then they put the address, and then once we finish taking the input, then we add the data elements to actually connect to our objects. So but we need a conditional logic in place here to basically say whether it's a lead or contact depending on the values that the user sort of entered. So let's see, so lead or contact, right? So okay, so I think what we need to do is go back to the toolbox, and let me switch off the auto layout editor so that I see the elements nicely. Okay, so now we need the decision element, so let's add the decision elements. So I'm gonna say is lead or contact, is lead or contact, and then we say all conditions are met. Let's create two outcomes, right? So one of the outcome is lead, right? And the next outcome is contact. Okay, so now we need the resources to be fixed, right? So the resources will be, okay, yeah, so create lead contact, yeah, so this screen, right? So okay, so not visited, in fact it would be selected. So I'm gonna see whether we have created a variable. I think we need a variable. We need a variable which captures, okay, we need a variable. Let me see. So I'm running out of the time here, and we'll definitely continue the conversation in our next next episode, where I will further flesh out this example of showing how you can use these screen elements. But for now, just note that it's pretty powerful feature actually flows, and you have these screen elements which basically allow you to do a lot more than you can think. Like it gives you It gives you different things like sliders and record choices, etc. We have some very good examples in the Easy Spaces app, but I'll flesh out this example and probably in the next episode where we're going to complete this activity as well, and then move on to our next session. And next episode, I will also have a guest for SLDS design, and also I'll bring Julio on in December, where we'll again go back and look at some of the Heroku content, if you're looking for Heroku content. Okay, so with that, some housekeeping items here, right? So I have some helpful references for you to actually try it out. Like for example, we have Trailhead modules, which sort of explains all the concepts that I covered today. And also, yeah, there's a Trailhead module around flows and how to use the screen flows as well. So do check it out. um, and then I encourage you to actually look at our sample gallery apps. Sample gallery apps are part of Trailhead apps, where you can actually find a lot of use cases and a lot of best practices. So please do visit and take a look at it and share your feedback. And then finally, you can catch us on Trailblazer community for modern app development series. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything, please do actually reach out to us. And yeah, definitely I ran out of the time for the flow example today, but I plan to actually cover that in the next episode, in the beginning of the next episode, where we will uh, you know showcase that example. Okay, and so thank you so much for joining today. I have to actually vacate the stream for the next session, so do stay out. If you're looking for more sessions here. I'm gonna stop the stream here in a moment here. So yeah, just let us know. And thank you so much for joining the stream today.